Jimmy and Irene here with the 2=1 Marriage Podcast, and we are excited to help you, equip you, give you application and next steps to really finding your marriage equation and discovering how to find purpose in your own pain.
That's right. And one of the questions that we get bombarded with. We just use the word bombarded because so many people reach out to us wondering, how do I deal with the issue of my spouse in addiction? Either their spouse is in recovery and they need tools and help in how to keep their marriage fresh, alive, and moving forward, or someone is struggling in addiction and not ready to admit it or get the help that they need. So what do couples do?
Well, I think this is exactly where we were. And if I think back, I did not have the tools that I have now. And if I were able to talk to that Jimmy over 6.5 years ago and says, hey, let me equip you with how to get through this without, the repeated, arguments and fighting and the dancing back and forth of who's right and who's wrong. First thing I would have said is get educated.
That's right.
Like, I did not understand addiction. I did not understand where it comes from. I thought Irene was drinking at me. I thought you didn't like me. I thought it was all about me. And that wasn't the case at all. I was actually the blueprint for your healing. So how about I, as the blueprint, get educated? I remember now, going through on the other side of it, reading books on this and going to websites. And, I was kind of, messing with Al-Anon a little bit and trying to just find some tools and community, if you will, of other people who had navigated this. So I want to encourage you that before you confront, before you, blow off the handle, before you, whatever, get educated. Yeah. You know what? Hey, Siri is free. Let's go.
Come on, it's true. And, I remember being in denial and, again, not educated, not knowing what we were dealing with. And I think getting honest is the first thing.
Yeah.
So getting honest with my healthcare provider, getting honest with my counselor, and asking questions about addiction and if that applied to me. Now, I did Google, am I addicted to alcohol? And I'm telling you, if you have to Google it, you probably do have an issue.
Yeah.
So, but the next steps, like you said, are there for education, for resources and community. Another thing we did was reach out for help because we realized we couldn't do it alone. We needed people in our lives like pastors. We needed friends to help have the conversation that we didn't want to have, that I needed help.
That's right.
You needed help when you made a decision that you were going to get gastric sleeve surgery, right? And we had needed doctors and nurses and counselors and nutritionists to deal with that aspect of your journey.
I think one of the things in reaching out for help is making sure you're talking to the right people.
That's right.
People who are emotionally healthy. People who, once you recover, don't hold your spouse to where, they were. Because a lot of times in marriage, we recover. But the people that we've told who are not emotionally healthy, the people who we told who are not, just in a place of really being able to process and understand forgiveness and understand, some of the nuances of addiction. A lot of times people get stuck. Yeah. And we've experienced that where our family members have gotten stuck and friends have gotten stuck. And we're in this new place, but because we told the wrong people, they're still in the old place. Yeah. And it's like additional warfare that you don't want to experience.
Absolutely. So reaching out for help involved people that we trusted, people that were vaults, people that we could trust to keep our what we had going on private while still holding us accountable.
Yeah.
And pushing us to get the help that we needed, not letting us stay where we were. Being able to have those hard conversations, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think another thing is, especially in our situation, I was so focused on how Irene was sick and how much Irene was drinking and how Irene's mind wasn't right and how the effects that, all of the collateral damage that she was causing. I was not on my own health journey.
Yeah.
I was not getting emotionally healthy. I was not getting spiritually healthy. I stopped praying and did more complaining than praying. I went to church to seek, help for her, but neglected my own self. It's like getting on the airplane, right? And, every time I'm on the airplane, the stewardess says, let's make sure you put that mask on yourself first before you're trying to help someone else. And maybe it wouldn't have gotten as bad as it was with my anger had I been willing to deal with me before I went to get you help. So then,
So that whole working on you first, you can't control the other person, but what can you control? You can only control you. I can't fix Jimmy, but I can control what I do with Irene. So getting into counseling to help you process and take the lenses off what's happening in your spouse to create boundaries in the safety of a counselor, somebody who has wisdom that can help guide you so that you're not falling into enabling your spouse. And you shouldn't be doing that type of processing on your own. Yeah. It's too hard, wouldn't you say? Yeah. Because you're entangled between, I love this person, but they're hurting me. And so sometimes you need a non-biased person to help you process that. So I think what people don't realize is that the focus goes on the person with the addiction, but we don't realize that the family members and the loved ones of the person in the addiction are just as sick emotionally as the person in addiction. So it is so important that you focus on caring for yourself. You deserve to be cared for. You don't deserve to be lied on, cheated, stolen from, manipulated. All of those things are painful. Yeah. And we experienced that type of pain that we caused one another and needed to heal individually.
I think me, looking back and me being unhealthy, I was unable to move us forward. In fact, I was probably pushing Irene more into her addiction by my response, by my judgments. And I like to say it this way: be careful of judging people who sin differently than you. Wow. Be careful of judging people who sin differently than you. I was so focused on what she was doing, I didn't realize that I had some issues that I needed to work on also. Yeah. And so it turned into this dance. Well, what about you? And what about what you're doing? And it just went back and forth. And then we're playing literally marriage tug of war, where I'm not going to change until you change. And I'm not. And she's like, I'm not going to change until you change. Well, the truth is both of us needed to change.
Yeah. So as we began to dig and do our research, we realized that, I had some mental health challenges going on with anxiety and depression, as well as the addiction. And then the addiction was making the mental health issues worse. Yeah. And what we didn't realize at the time is that I needed dual diagnosis treatment. Ooh. So literally, I think statistics show that 20 million Americans are dealing with addiction, right? And half of those are dual diagnosis. What that's telling me that people are dealing with addiction and mental health at the same time. We need to find a treatment plan or a course of recovery that fits us. So for some people, the intense outpatient treatment.
It's great.
They don't have to go all the way to rehab. A lot of insurances cover that. Some people can do talk therapy. Yeah. There's somatic experience. There's all kinds of different treatment options, EMDR for trauma. Yeah. Like there's stuff you can do at home. But I was at the point in my, on the scale of addiction. Yeah. I was on the scale where I could not stop without a detox program, and I needed help from a facility. So I'm grateful that I had that resource. What would you say, Jimmy, to the person out there who it was in your shoes, who is in your shoes, who has a spouse who cannot see that they are in an addiction and they're feeling alone? Wow. They're feeling like they don't have anybody that sees things the way they do. Like, I made you feel crazy. Yeah. And I made you believe that you were not seeing what you really were seeing. And you were seeing the truth that I had a problem. Yeah. How do you help someone like that?
I think community is key. Like, community can help you with your own blind spots. Like, community is a community of people, a community of life-giving people, a community that will look at your blind spots, a community that will help you. How should I say this? You know, can you be praying for me as I go into this conversation? And I think we forsake some of the things that we can do, like prayer.
Yeah.
God, lead me to the right relationships that will protect my wife. Like not really uncover you, but cover you in prayer.
That's right.
And I think that's key. Like, lead me to a community of people that won't talk about, you know, us behind our backs. Lead me to a community of people that there's no strings attached, you know, whether we get healthy or not. And I think, like, we need people that are for us.
Yeah.
We need people that are with us.
Yeah.
We need people that will fight with us
Yeah.
and say, how are you doing, and checking in.
It's true. And, you know, we had a couple that was our safe couple that helped with that intervention, because you got to the point where you weren't able to help me realize that I needed help. So we had to call in reinforcements, and that was our community. So I thank God that we had other people. So it was this couple that helped me get to rehab, but it was also our counselor that helped me see that I was not willing to give up what was holding me in bondage. This thing that was creating such terrible consequences in our relationship, and the consequences were escalating. And I couldn't stop. That was an indication that I had a problem. And it took our counselor kind of breaking that down for me to even begin to open my heart to and mind to the thought of getting help in a rehab.
I think another thing is having boundaries.
Yeah.
I wish I could have communicated or had the ability or the knowledge to communicate healthy boundaries, not just how you're drinking or what was affecting me, but boundaries of how it was affecting us as a family.
Yeah.
Like boundaries that I wouldn't slip into enabling the behavior with my anger, or enabling the behavior with, well, she only had 2 drinks, or enabling that behavior, well, at least we're gonna have sex tonight. Like, I think that, you know, I can't enable the behavior. And so
your no didn't always mean no.
Yeah.
It meant yes sometimes when it benefited me.
Absolutely.
That's
and so
real.
if I had boundaries, like, okay, and with consequences, like if this continues, here's what the path is gonna look like.
That's right.
If you drink again, this is what the path is going to look like, and communicating what the consequences were up front, so when your spouse is in their right mind and sober, there is a contemplation of, maybe I don't want to do this. Maybe I need to get help, because what it does is it makes them see the stakes.
Yeah.
You know,
What's at
before
stake? It's
they're
true.
before they're intoxicated or inebriated, because it's hard to, when you're inebriated, to count the costs.
Right.
But before, do I want to go to the liquor store and get this bottle? Do I want it because the cost is my kids, you know, my values. And I didn't know how to communicate that. I'm glad we know how to communicate that now.
Yeah. And I think that what your boundaries, or communicating our boundaries to our spouse, what that does is it protects us. It protects our heart, our worth, and our value. And I think that goes for other things. Like, let's pick another example. Like, okay, so in the event that, you know, you're struggling with something in your own life, whether that's something like, you know, I ask you the question, have you been watching porn, or have you looked at something inappropriate? And if the answer was ever yes, you know, that's something we would take and we would sit down and talk through it.
Absolutely.
Like, what was the antecedent? What happened before that led to you wanting to keep your eyes on that site too long, or click here or click there? What if it was food? Like, why did you choose to eat after you felt that emotional high or that emotional low? Can we pick something else? Like,
great.
So that I believe that type of discussion and openness and honesty is really what led to deeper intimacy in our relationship. And the boundary of, we're going to talk about it and not necessarily get physical. Was so helpful. It told me that, like, we could separate issues, including with the drinking. Like, you got to the point where if I drank, we didn't connect intimately because we started to separate those things. And I feel like that boundary ultimately protected us.
Yeah, I think another thing that we have done with that, and I think you brought something this up, but we can be so hurt by the problem. She's the problem. Drinking is the problem. Driving is the problem. Porn is the problem. Anger is the problem. We can be so focused on the problem that we're not focused on the path that led us to the problem.
Yeah.
And I think when you talked about that and we start researching and where have you been hurt before and what is happening and what's coming up for me. And when we use that language of what's coming up for me, what we're doing is we're trying to pinpoint where the problem is and how we got there and finding the path and the journey to the problem. And so I want to encourage you, if you're listening right now, you can be so focused. Let me say it this way. It's impossible to have grace for the problem if you don't understand the path of where it came from. It's impossible to say, wow, that's not happening to me. That's really not even about me. It's my job to fall in love with the person so much that I care more about the path and how they got there than how it affected me, which is the problem.
Yeah. And that was where true reconciliation and redemption and love showed up.
Yeah.
Because God's love came through Jesus.
Wow.
And his love was so large that he loved us past all of our sin, all of our frailties, all of the things he knew we would do in the future, the past, all of that.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you come into my world and you learn the why behind the what, and we talk and we explore, that shame disappears, the intimacy grows, and you actually become a part of healing that thing in me. But like, I have to talk about it for you to be a part of the healing.
Yeah.
And I think that what we're experiencing at this point in our relationship, what we're experiencing in our relationship with God, our relationship with our kids, like, I feel like we got a second chance at life and love, and like it's been like a honeymoon phase all over again, hasn't it?
Come on, we can have a honeymoon night right now.
You were so funny.
I'm sorry.
But like when we first got married, we did not have what we have now.
No.
What we have now is so much better. Isn't it crazy that it took digging up dysfunction, digging up junk, pain, trauma, for us to experience the love that we have right now?
It's great.
Like, our junk brought us closer.
Absolutely. I think, I like this. If I was preaching, I would say our crap brought us closer.
Yeah.
Come on, C's. But anyway, the last thing that I think, which just throw another C in there, compassion.
Compassion.
I want to encourage you to not allow the fuel of your empathy to run dry. And here's what compassion is. Compassion is I'm going to put your hurt in my heart until it's healed.
Yeah.
Could you imagine right now if you just could find some compassion, some empathy, some coming into the world of your spouse and experiencing things from their point of view? You know, Irene and I, we have 3 kids. And I remember the first time you said, we're pregnant. And I was like, no, girl, you pregnant. And I went to this thing called Lamaze class. Yeah. And I was in Lamaze class and they were, this is how you breathe. And this is how you, and I was like, this is weird. I don't want to be in this class until I realized what they were teaching me. They were teaching me how to hold the hand of my wife and help her breathe through pain that I would never experience myself. That's what it means to come into someone's world. I'm never gonna have a baby.
Right.
But I can be in the room with you and hold your hand and help you breathe through the pain. I wanna ask you in this moment, as you have listened to these episodes, where is your fuel level and your compassion? The Bible says when Jesus looked at the crowds, he had compassion on them. And then he said, you know what? I'm gonna look at them as sheep without a shepherd. And he said, man, I'm looking for some harvest workers to help me lead the sheep. What if your pasture, your sheep is your spouse? that you're supposed to have compassion on them. And just like Jesus had grace for you, you're supposed to extend that to your spouse.
That's right. We're called to be the blueprint for each other's growth.
Absolutely.
We're called to reconcile and love one another past our differences. And I just want to encourage you, all our listeners, to join us on this journey because we're all in it together.
Let's go.